Hey everybody, I'm Shane Ireland. Welcome to another episode of Tasting Notes. I'm filming on location here in a very old tobacco barn, probably from at least around the 1940s. Not only because the vibes are impeccable and because I love old tobacco barns, but because I am discussing a very special tobacco today. It is the 10th anniversary of the BriarWorks line of tobaccos produced by Jeremy Reeves and Cornell and Diehl. And we have something very special to talk about today, and that is the addition of the newest blend in that line, Smokehouse. The latest addition to the BriarWorks line of tobaccos made by Cornell and Diehl and Jeremy Reeves, Smokehouse, is classified as an English, and that is true, but it is more than the sum of its parts. Really, this is sort of an homage to fire-cured tobacco in general, and I'll get back to that when we're talking about the actual profile of the blend, but components, before I get into the tin here, we're talking about a base of 2019 Red Virginias. To that, two different grades of Izmir are added. One is from 2018, the other from 2020. And then we have two different examples of the finest fire-cured leaf in the world. One being Latakia from Turkey. Again, this is the Turkish Latakia that we've talked about a little bit before, that Jeremy has been sourcing for special projects like this. The overall quality is incredible. It's very consistently fire-cured to a degree of precision that I don't think anybody in this industry has seen before. And also a very, very nice dark-fired Kentucky from the US. So really, Smokehouse, as the name suggests, is a tribute to the fire-cured tradition, which happens, in barns not dissimilar to this, maybe just a little more functioning at the moment. And then also, kind of the play on that between fire-cured tobacco and the widely loved process of smoking meats and other good stuff. Getting into the tin note, I should also say, first of all, like all the other BriarWorks blends, comes in the very handy, reusable, and very green mason jar here. Pop in the lid from that, even though this is recently produced and basically as fresh as it gets. So rich, so balanced, honestly kind of a fair degree of sweetness detectable on the nose. And of course you have that lovely earthy, there's like the mesquite wood and the sort of sweeter caramelized notes that come along with that fire curing process. A little bit of earthiness, a little bit of spice, but this one's actually much, much softer and more delicate on the nose than I think your typical English blend would be, even something that's, medium-bodied, all-day sort of English. Produced in a flake cut, very supple. I think that it's really, really well performing at the moisture content right out of the jar. I did give this one maybe not a lot of air time, but I did find myself sort of aerating the tobacco as I was rubbing it out, and that seemed to work pretty well. Still takes to the match really well, burns very slowly and very coolly, and with a ton of flavor right off the bat. My initial impression right off the first light is immediately this is a very different sort of English mixture. I think that the split duty of the continental leaf between the Latakia from Turkey and the dark fired from the US, basically what you end up with is something that is extremely balanced and neither too smoky campfire-y or too much on that sort of mesquite barbecue kind of side. I'm actually getting a fair bit of sweetness right off the bat, not just from the 2019 Red Virginias, but I think some of that sweetness for me tends to come from dark-fired leaf in certain grades. It's not like a sugary sweetness, but there is a sort of a caramelized feel to those tobaccos, and I'm attributing that to the dark fire more than the Latakia in this case. I tend to get from certain English blends almost that like wine-like sort of quality that goes hand in hand with some of the like incense notes almost. But when I smoke a dry fire-cured cigar, for example, I tend to pick up some of the more caramelized notes, a little bit more sweetness, and even a little bit of a fruity character. And both of those qualities are immediately right off the bat in this tobacco, sort of doing a dance on top of the base tobaccos here and lending both of their best features to the blend. What Pete and Jeremy were trying to achieve with Smokehouse was effectively like a stronger, after dinner type of an English mixture, and something, like I said, that sort of riffs on both types of fire-cured tobacco, the Latakia and the dark-fired Kentucky. And I can tell that even though right off the bat this is very, very well balanced and very refined, The flavor is incredibly rich, and it will continue to amplify throughout the bowl. And it doesn't take long. I mean, I'm about a quarter of the way into it. It doesn't take long for you to really feel the power of this blend. Now, most fuller English mixtures, I think you'll find are heavy on flavor and the smoky quality, particularly if there's a high percentage of Latakia. But Latakia doesn't typically retain the same sort of strength that an American dark-fired leaf will retain. So I think what they've done here is they've been able to keep the sort of feel and the quality and the creaminess of a full-bodied English mixture and add to it a little bit of extra intrigue and complexity. Again, like I said, I get some of that sweetness, some of those dark fruit notes, almost wine-like, that pair really well with the Latakia that has some similar characteristics. But that dark-fired really takes the strength up a notch here, and the body as well. This is really dense on the palate, and the almost salty, minerally type vibe that you tend to get from dark-fired forward blends, or like I said, dry-cured dark-fired cigars, that balances so well with that creamy, like almost woody texture and notes from the Latakia and the other Orientals in this blend. One thing about this that I really enjoy, and it's something that I find common to both dark-fired and Latakia, when you add these components to a blend, it makes it really easy to control your burn rate. So I'm yapping kind of a lot here, and the spontaneity of this blend, you pick it back up, you puff a little bit, it's still going. You can really push it far too and really get the full impact of the spices and the woody character and the smoky character from all of these components without experiencing, too much heat in the pipe or too much heat on the palate. Latakia and dark-fired both are pretty forgiving on temperature, and sharing the stage in this blend, you end up with something that has a really perfect and spontaneous burn that will always smoke really coolly. You have to try really, really hard to overheat this one. Nearing the middle of the bowl, as expected, everything is amplified quite a bit here. It's still very balanced and still very pillowy, and even though it's dense on the palate, it is not overpowering. The strength is dialed up a notch for sure, and then I'm getting a lot more of the interplay and the complexity from the Latakia and the dark-fired leaf. That Turkish Latakia, I was thinking, I'm tasting a little bit of warming spices, maybe through the retrohale. There's an earthiness and that incense-like quality coming through. Maybe even like a hint of anise that I get from that. It's just enough to add a little bit of intrigue, but honestly, the overall like mouthfeel and even the aftertaste is really, really clean. Not lingering at all. I think if I was given this blindly, at various points in the bowl, I would question whether or not I was tasting either Latakia or dark-fired, and I think that's part of the fun of a blend like this. It's not typical to find something like this on the market, and when you do, I highly suggest and recommend not only a variety of times of day and on occasions to try this in different pipes, but yeah, basically that. Try it in different chamber sizes, different degrees of, either rubbing it out fully or packing it flake style. You're gonna find a lot of different levels of sweetness and complexity and smoky character here. Typically, I find that even the English blends that I enjoy the most, they tend to develop throughout the bowl, but usually in big blocks of like what I'm tasting in the beginning, what I'm tasting in the middle, and what I'm tasting at the end. And it becomes a little bit predictable when you are familiar with a blend like that. Now this adds, I think through the dark-fired leaf, enough to set it apart that basically you're going to have a wide variety of different experiences here, especially if you are somebody that chases complexity in a blend. Yeah, there's just a lot going on. There's a lot going on. It is a powerhouse of flavor and of strength. I'm glad it's not warmer out here right now because I'd be getting a little hot under the collar, I think. This is not my first pipe of the day, thankfully, but yeah, I'd say that this is firmly an after dinner for many smokers. I think if you like stronger stuff, or if you're a big fan of dark-fired leaf in particular, you might find this to work well throughout the day, but yeah, this is a bit of a nightcap smoke for me, I think. I'm smoking Smokehouse today in a J. Allen pipe, English pipe with a Group 4 size chamber. It's performing beautifully. And yeah, I'm just thankful that Jeremy and Pete put their heads together again to create something else innovative like the rest of the BriarWorks blends. And I wanted to wish the boys down in Tennessee a happy 10th anniversary as well. See you guys next time.